Hello and welcome to One on One on Plus TV Africa. I'm Marianne Okon. Today we'll be one-on-one with an APC stalwart in Rivers State. Of course, Rivers has been in the news for a long time, and every single day something new always comes up. I have in the studio, joining me on One-on-One, Tonye Princewill. It's good to have you in the studio.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes. Of course, a lot of people remember you when you ran for governorship in Rivers State. That was on a Labour Party. At the time,
yes, of course.
Yes, and then of course recently you have been in the APC. You were the APC. I think you were the campaign
Director of Strategic Communications for Tonye Princewill campaign. Yes.
A couple of us thought you were the DJ of the campaign, actually,
no,
because we saw you everywhere. But let's talk about Rivers State, obviously. Okay. Before we came on air, we were talking about the fact that Rivers makes the news all the time, and sometimes mostly not for the right reasons. And one would wonder why, because a lot of bad things happen everywhere in the world, everywhere in Nigeria. In fact, the northeastern parts of Nigeria are worse, but Rivers State always is in the news. What could be the reasons for that?
Well, I think, apart from the fact that it's unfair, I think it's just the reality. And when you have a governor who is, a symbol of violence, then of course the violent news.
When you say a governor is a symbol of violence, what exactly do you mean? Are you referring to Governor Nyesom Wike, and what is violent about him?
Pretty much everything. His tone, his actions, what he sanctions. I know you're just playing devil's advocate, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm asking the questions. I'm wondering why you would refer to him that way.
You asking me that question would be like, you don't know. But I believe you do. But I think the videos are all over there with him carrying a machete and saying that this machete has been given to him to use on APC people. So his tone has always been violent. I mean, it's not news. The level of insecurity in the state is not news as well. I mean, the month of November, for instance, out of 44 kidnappings in Nigeria, 29 were from Rivers State. So yes, we've been in the news for the wrong reasons. We should be in the news for the right reasons. But when you have leadership that is devoid of the need to sell a positive image, then of course these kind of things happen.
Just to push you a bit on what you just said, the issue of Rivers being in the news did not start in the Nyesom Wike administration. I'd just like to remind you. So it's not necessarily about Nyesom Wike, it's about Rivers people.
I
because
disagree.
It's being referred to as Rivers of Blood.
Well, I disagree. I mean, Rivers State has definitely been in the news for good reasons as well as bad reasons. I mean, Rivers State, when it came to education, it was literally capital named by the United Nations as a literary capital. So we've got very positive reasons. A lot of positive investment came into the place. We had one of the best records for primary and secondary school education. So we've had several good reasons to have Rivers State in the news. But of recent, we've had some very negative connotations. I mean, look at this election. The presidential election had some incidents, especially in Abonima. But the governorship election, in spite of the incidents, there were no deaths on the day of the election. But when you listen to INEC or you listen to some people, it would be as if there was a war zone. I, both in the presidential and the governorship election, voted in my community and it was peaceful. We've never had it that good. So the message and the image of Rivers State is negative. But what you like to do is send a much more positive. But apparently good news does not travel as fast as bad news. Again,
I might be a critic, but I'm just wondering, is this really about INEC or is it what their people experienced? Why? Because your community is just 0% compared to the...
Yeah, my community is bigger than 0%. But I know
I'm just saying compared to the larger...
Fraction. I understand that.
Abonima, yes, maybe. You're from...
Well, I'm from Buguma.
Buguma, yes.
Calabar Kingdom includes Abonima.
So Buguma is just 0.1% of the whole of Rivers State. So maybe INEC officials in several other places must have had different experiences, hence the reason why they put that in their report. But maybe. You might not, might disagree with that because
I definitely disagree with that. I mean, not just my experience, but the experience of many others was very positive. Like I said, there were no deaths. That's a message that you should think about. But even more importantly, isn't what I say. It's the fact that INEC, in spite of the fact that they suspended the election, claimed to have the results of 17 local governments out of 23 in their possession. that doesn't reflect the widespread violence that was the reason for suspending the election. So when you ask yourself the question, if there was widespread violence, how come you have 17 local governments all of a sudden in your possession?
Well, I did speak with Oboefanga. He is the rec of INEC in River State, and he did say that they did not have all of the 17 local governments. There were trickles, some were for certain local government areas, some were from wards, so it's not a full result. It's not like they had all of the results. They had results from places where they did not necessarily have issues.
I'm not sure how you want to paint it. But if
I'm not painting any picture. I'm just giving you what Oboefanga said.
As you speak to me, as you're giving me his version, I'm also giving you my response to it. And my response to it would be, if you've got 17 out of 23, then where is the widespread violence that caused the suspension in the first place? We're not even talking about the fact that there's nowhere in the Electoral Act and it makes provision for you to suspend the election for an entire state. There's nothing like that. But even in spite of that illegality, it does not reflect the widespread violence that they were referring to. And don't forget, there were no deaths. So if there were no deaths and there was widespread violence, then how come you end up with 17 out of 23 local governments?
I have two questions.
Results?
When we say violence, does it have to result to death? One. Secondly, there were issues. We had reports, of soldiers and police clashing, issues of ballot boxes being snatched. I remember, I don't know if it was same I think in the Riverine area, women were trying to hold on to a guy who was dressed as a military officer, trying to take their ballot boxes away. So again, do we have to have people turn up dead before we can actually accept that there was violence?
We do not. It's definitely a reflection of intensity of violence. But you're right, it doesn't have to lead to death. But even these incidents you've referred to are a handful of incidents. We have over 5,000 polling units in River State. If they were snatching ballot boxes, in how many? And if they snatch ballot boxes in a polling unit, you cancel that polling unit. If it's a series of polling units, you cancel them. But you can't have, in fact, what am I saying? In addition to voting points, you have about 6,000 plus voting points. So which ones were ballot boxes snatched from? Why didn't you cancel those ones? It's clear that the results were going completely out of sync with what the expectations were. The AAC candidate was winning. He was in the lead. 7 local governments had been declared.
According to you?
Yes, and videoed, recorded, captured publicly. And when they saw the way it was going, they cancelled it. They said of course, the INEC. When you're talking about who else will cancel it?
But I'm still trying to understand why
Let me explain to you why they would do it. They would do it because they are doing what is in their interest. That's why they would do it.
I'm sorry.
Why would you suspend an election in an entire state?
INEC is a federal government agency. The same INEC returned your presidential candidate.
It's not.
And then all of a sudden they're playing, according to you, to the gallery of the PDP in River State.
It's not about a generic cause for INEC. The INEC rec, Oboefanga, was calling frequently to Abuja to suspend the election. Why was he doing that? It was in his interest to do that. Because clearly there was no reason to suspend the election in the entire state. Well, it's illegal because the Electoral Act does not make that provision.
Well, if INEC in itself, because INEC released a statement which was signed by its spokesperson, if they came, they had a fact-finding mission and they did release the reports which the army seemed to not like, and of course the APC also didn't really like. I'm sorry, I'm just wondering, even if Oboefanga had an intent as a person, the INEC National would not also be signing off on that, according to what you're saying. So I'm seeing a disparity here.
I don't see a disparity at all. I don't. I think, for me, the question has to be, are you asking the questions of INEC? First of all, is what I'm saying true or not? Is it legal to suspend an election? I mean, forget my opinion, because sometimes the media says, what did you say? What did he say? What is the truth? The truth, I say, and I will stand to be corrected, is that it's illegal to suspend an election. That's number one. Number two, the report by the fact-finding committee, how many opposition parties were interviewed before they came to their conclusions?
INEC also did say that they do not necessarily have to take what you say. They had a fact-finding mission. Doesn't mean that... No. What parties were saying was that INEC did not come to them to have meetings, as they did, allegedly, with the PDP, which was untrue, because INEC said they had no meetings with political parties.
But we have records of it.
All these will be allegations until they're proven.
The point is not even what they did or not do. You see, to me, the question is, if the questions were asked and they chose not to take the responses, it's different. People should be allowed to make representations. You can choose to either ignore or not. We're not saying that a report that you make after you have done your fact-finding that doesn't include us is invalid, but we're just making the point that you should have included all parties. Having said that, in that report, they did not even mention the fact that the sitting governor of the state walks into a collation center with armed policemen, and they go and seize the results and take them away. They didn't capture that. The fact that the armed policemen shot a soldier was not even mentioned in the report. And amongst the thugs that were with them, a soldier was seriously injured. Let me tell you something else that you don't know. The fact-finding committee interviewed the army.
Yes, they did.
They were informed of these shootings. They were informed of the soldier that was macheted. They did not talk about it. There was no condemnation of the action of the governor. Instead, there was condemnation of the army. So is that not bias? I just wonder whether everybody is quiet to what is going on. So tomorrow, another governor can come and do this, and it's okay. It's like our friend Trump can get away with murder in the US. Wike can get away with murder in Nigeria. And nobody's asking questions. Now, for those of us in APC, our biggest trouble, and we keep asking the question is, why is nobody asking these salient questions? If a governor can walk into a collation center, which is not supposed to, take the results, leave that place after shooting a soldier, and then INEC says that amongst all the results collated, Obiakpo is one of them. How credible is that to us?
You paint a picture.
And then you said that we should be, INEC, why are we accusing INEC?
But if these things...
Ask the questions of INEC.
Well, then again, this sounds more like the governor shot at a soldier. This is how the picture that is being painted. But the governor, before elections, his policemen are taken from him. He has no...
Is that what they told you?
No, but this is generally, the IG always does that.
But he did not in this case, because the man came with his police. And I'm telling you...
in this case, River State governor is the only governor in Nigeria who had police officers that were not taken from him.
Why don't we ask the question whether he had police or not?
No,
what happened in other states?
I just asked the question and you
I don't. You guys are national, so you have this national picture. I'm talking about River State. That's what I know about. The governor came to the collation center with police. The army have said as much. The INEC fact-finding committee, the full report says as much. So I'm surprised that it's not about what I'm saying. It's the fact. And if it is not true, I would expect you to tell me that what I'm saying is not true.
I'm sure it will be recorded by INEC, and INEC has the final say. INEC did say...
You have confidence in INEC?
Yes, of course. We have no reasons to, because if the people don't have confidence...
We have every reason not to have confidence in INEC.
If the people have no confidence...
Many reasons not
if we don't have confidence in INEC, then we should also be questioning Mr. President's election results.
It's not about INEC entirely
hence my question
as
again.
one body. INEC is not infallible. They can make mistakes. If they do 20 things and 2 things are wrong, we should point it out when those 2 things are wrong. It doesn't mean that everything they do is wrong, no.
Interesting. Let's move on to the issue of coalition. Now they're saying that everything will be done by April 25. April 2nd, I beg your pardon, to 5th. So
April 2nd
before this week is over, we will be able to find out what's happening. The governor had blamed the army for interfering in the elections,
which is what he always does.
You, on the other hand, are blaming the governor for using the police. So it's more like...
I didn't say use the police generally. He used the police in a collation center, yes.
Interesting. There's a question I've been hoping to ask. In a state where nobody knows the AAC candidate, I did ask a couple of people if they know his name. Nobody knows his name, except the people who, follow his party, maybe some APC people. But they don't know his name. And he was leading in the polls. Isn't that questionable?
Why?
It's a question.
Okay, so I'll tell you the way it works as far as politics of River State is concerned. If the party loyalists opt for somebody or opt for a party, they will come out en masse. So basically our support, our passion, our desires were all poured into the AAC candidate. So it's simply a question of today it's AAC candidate that is our choice, and we all go to the ballot to vote for that person. River State is not like many states. News travels very fast. In fact, news in River State doesn't only travel within River State, it travels around Nigeria. So the message was clear. Several days before the election, we all met, and then as we operate in cells, So once the leadership takes a choice, a decision, it goes very fast down to the grassroots. We don't deal with leaders in our state who don't get to the grassroots. Everybody gets to the grassroots. Everybody's in touch with their communities. So it's not a surprise at all.
For you, it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, do you as a party resolve, because of course everybody's hoping that peace would return to River State and we're not going to have all those factionalized issues, pointing of fingers. I recently saw a video of protest and people were being tear gassed in River State. If the results by the end of the day on the 5th comes out, do you resolve to stand by it?
No, I mean, I've already said it. I was in the newspapers today saying that whatever the results of the collation will be, they won't be credible. Because between the time when the election was suspended and now, nobody knows what's happening to sensitive material. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows how you move from 7 announced to 17. So the credibility of the election, as far as I'm concerned, has already been diluted. Standing by the election, even if they declare the AAC candidate, I expect PDP to also be unhappy about it. So it's not about who wins. It's just about the credibility and the transparency of the process. So I can be, I guess, categorical in saying that we will not be standing by whatever they come out with.
Well, we're still talking with an APC stalwart in River State, Prince Tonye Princewill. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be wrapping things up. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's still one-on-one on Plus TV Africa, and we're still talking with an APC stalwart in River State, Prince Tonye Princewill. Now, I'm just wondering, for someone who's lived in River State for about 6 years, how can we change the image that has already been dented of River State? How do we bring back that garden city image of River State, that peace-loving nature of the people? I'm believing that River State can be seen with a different lens, you know, something different from what we're seeing today. And how achievable is that? And are we going to ever get back to that place?
Well, to me, I think it's really about leadership, really. I remember in 2007 when Amechi first came into power, the place was a mess. But over the course of a few months, slowly the narrative started to change. I remember someone telling me who was not a friend of Amechi said he was shocked he had been away for a while. He came back and he was shocked that the nightlife of River State had come back from a period where people were raising their hands to walk past checkpoints to a place where people were actually, Amechi himself was going to nightclubs. He's not the nightclub type, but he just went there to show people how safe River State was going to. So it's very easy to change. It just depends on if the leadership, in this case the governor, is interested in making sure that message or that image. If your rhetoric and your message is violent, negative, is not accommodating, then of course it trickles down. I've always said that Wike is a governor for war. He's not a governor for peace. So he would find war, even if there isn't one, just to continue to send that message. For those of us that were not happy with Amechi for his fight against Jonathan, we understood how Amechi narrative was selling very well and was useful. But there's a time for that, and that time has passed. Now we're talking about moving the state forward. Amechi is not the problem. Even if Amechi walks away from River State today, the rest of us are there, don't like Wike, and we will continue to oppose him. So when people look at the narrative, they'll say that Amechi is always being dragged into the narrative. It's always Amechi versus Wike. It's not Amechi versus Wike. Even if Amechi wasn't there today, Wike will still be going through the same problems. We don't like him. We don't think it's good for us. He's not...
When you say we, who are you referring to?
I'm talking about Rivers people.
Well, you're one person. You can't speak for all of Rivers people because there are people who support the PDP.
If you allow me to finish, I'm talking about Rivers people in large numbers. And I say that in the context of APC supporters and people who are not PDP diehards. There are some PDP diehards that doesn't care whether, as long as it's PDP, no problem. But even inside the PDP themselves, people come to me and they tell me, Prince, I don't want to mention names, but people high up in his government say, please, can you just remove this guy? We're scared for our lives. We want him gone. There are people who believe in power at all costs. And there's some people who just believe that as long as the state moves forward, it doesn't matter who's in charge. I'm one of those people who believes that it doesn't matter who's in power. Let the state move forward. But Wike insists that he must be the one that is there and is prepared to sacrifice his people on the altar of his ambition. That's the difference.
Interesting. So you're saying if there's a change in leadership, we'll see a change in...
Change in style of leadership.
So if we change in leadership, and we have another guy who does not necessarily belong to your party, but does things the same way, we're still going to have the same kind of river state.
Absolutely. It's not about just the leader. It's about the style of the leadership. Of course, people will say that the leader comes with his style. All we're saying is that the style of leadership needs to be inclusive. It shouldn't be, you're not the governor of PDP. You're the governor of River State. And that, I think, is a message that really needs to sink down to the people.
Before I let you go, I'm just wondering, what made you change your mind about being governor of River State? I mean, I remember I was at that debate where it was you, Dakuku Peter Side, and Governor Wike. But then all of a sudden you decided to take a back seat. What happened? Well,
it's partly because of what we see today now, which is that everybody wants to be governor at all costs. Magnus Abe wants to be governor, and if he's not governor, nobody else can be governor. Wike wants to be governor. To me, that was part of the problem of the state, that everybody wanted to be governor. There's so much else to do apart from being governor. You can help your state in many other ways. And part of the way I chose to help the state is to try to use my position to bring people together. I think when people saw me, they thought, he ran for governor in 2007, he ran for governor in 2015, is he coming to run again? And so I think one of the very powerful messages I needed to send was, I'm not here to run for governor, I'm here to help bring us together so that we can get a governor that moves the state forward.
All right, we want to thank you very much, Prince Tonye Princewill, for speaking with us on One-on-One.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
And that's it on One-on-One. Stay with us for the rest of our programs. I am Mary Okon.